Ambassador Jake Morrison walked through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime, and every alien he passed looked at him with barely hidden amusement. The tall blue Zephyrians with their flowing robes whispered to each other in their musical language while pointing at his simple black suit. The gray-skinned Mordic delegates clicked their mandibles, and what Jake had learned was their version of laughter. Even the smaller species, like the furry Kelon and the insect-like Thraxi, seemed to find something funny about the human representative. Jake had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now, and he still played the part of the confused newcomer perfectly. He stumbled over alien names and asked simple questions about basic galactic customs. The other species ate it up because it confirmed what they already believed about humans. They thought Earth was just another backward world that got lucky enough to develop space travel without destroying itself completely. The truth was very different, but Jake was excellent at keeping secrets. He had been a military intelligence officer for 15 years before taking this job, and everything he did was calculated. Every stumble was planned, and every confused question gathered valuable information. The aliens saw a bumbling diplomat, but Jake was actually one of the most dangerous men in the galaxy. Captain Lisa Hayes commanded the exploration vessel New Horizon, and right now she was conducting humanity's 7th First Contact mission this month. Her ship looked like a basic exploration vessel from the outside, but the modifications hidden throughout its systems would have shocked every alien engineer in known space. Chief Engineer Bobby Clark had worked for months to make sure their advanced technology was completely invisible to alien scanners. Lisa's crew of 40 included some of Earth's best military minds disguised as scientists and diplomats. Dr. Amy Foster studied alien biology with the kind of thoroughness that would have alarmed her subjects if they understood what she was really looking for. Communications Officer Sam Wright spoke 12 alien languages fluently, but pretended to struggle with basic phrases. Navigator Julie Parker could plot jumps through hyperspace that alien computers said were impossible, but she always claimed her calculations were just lucky guesses. The New Horizon approached the Kelani homeworld, and Lisa prepared for another performance. The Kelani were a peaceful aquatic species who had developed beautiful underwater cities. Their culture valued harmony above all else, and they had never fought a war in their recorded history. This made them perfect targets for what humanity was really doing out here. Lisa activated the ship's communication system and spoke in the halting manner she had perfected over months of practice. Her words came out slowly, as if she was translating from her native language in real time. She asked for permission to approach and study their fascinating civilization. The Kelani responded with enthusiasm because they loved sharing their culture with newcomers. What the Kelani didn't know was that Lisa's sensors were already mapping every settlement on their world. The ship's computers analyzed their population distribution and identified the locations of their government centers and communication networks. Dr. Foster studied the biological data streaming in and made notes about Kelani physiology that would be very useful if humans ever needed to develop weapons specifically designed for aquatic targets. Lieutenant Commander Tony Mitchell ran what the aliens thought was a simple cultural exchange program. Humans were placed in schools and research facilities throughout the galaxy where they could learn about different alien societies. The host species loved having humans around because they asked such innocent questions and seemed so eager to understand basic concepts that every galactic citizen learned in childhood. Tony's people were actually gathering detailed intelligence on every species they encountered. They mapped social structures and identified key leaders. They studied economic systems and found potential weak points. They learned about military organizations and defense capabilities. Most importantly, they observed how different species thought and made decisions because that knowledge would be crucial. When the mask finally came off, the program had placed over 3,000 humans throughout alien space, and each one sent regular reports back to Earth. The aliens saw cultural ambassadors, but Tony was running the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. Every human participant was either military or civilian intelligence with years of specialized training. Colonel Ryan Peters commanded the defense force on New Denver, humanity's newest colony world. The colony looked like every other human settlement. The aliens had seen, which meant it appeared vulnerable and poorly defended. The buildings were simple, prefabricated structures, and the population was only about 50,000 people, mostly families and researchers. What visitors didn't see were the hidden weapon emplacements built into every major structure. They missed the underground bunkers connected by tunnels that could move troops and supplies without detection. They had no idea that every adult colonist had military training and that the research facilities were actually manufacturing centers for advanced weapons and equipment. The hegemony slave raiders discovered this when they attacked New Denver expecting easy prey. The hegemony specialized in capturing members of peaceful species to sell in the outer rim markets. They had done this hundreds of times and never encountered serious resistance from their targets. 50. Hegemony ships dropped out of hyperspace around New Denver and immediately began broadcasting surrender demands. They expected the humans to panic and submit like every other species they had raided. Instead, they found themselves facing defensive fire that should have been impossible from a simple colony world. Ryan's forces destroyed 37 enemy ships in the first 10 minutes of combat. The remaining hegemony vessels tried to retreat, but found their hyperspace drives disabled by weapons that alien science said couldn't exist. Human fighters moved with impossible speed and precision while ground-based systems tracked and eliminated targets with terrifying efficiency. The battle lasted less than an hour and ended with every surviving raider in human custody. Ryan made sure to treat the prisoners well and even provided medical care for their wounded. When alien investigators arrived to study what happened, he explained that the colonists had just been very lucky and maybe the hegemony ships were having technical problems. The investigators found no evidence of advanced human technology because Bobby Clark and his engineering teams had already hidden or removed anything that might reveal the truth. The official report stated that the hegemony force had suffered multiple system failures that allowed the humans to achieve an unlikely victory through improvisation and determination. Jake Morrison read that report and smiled because it was exactly what Earth needed the galaxy to believe for just a little while longer. Dr. Kevin Turner worked in the Joint Research Facility on Proxima Station, where the galaxy's brightest minds collaborated on advanced scientific projects. The Zephyrians considered themselves the most intellectually gifted species in known space, and they barely tolerated having humans in their laboratories. They treated Kevin like a student who might eventually understand basic concepts if he worked very hard and asked the right questions. Kevin played his part perfectly for 6 months until the day he forgot himself while working on a quantum mechanics problem. The lead Zephyrian scientist, Dr. Zalthara, had been struggling with calculations for weeks when Kevin casually mentioned that the solution required accounting for dimensional membrane fluctuations in 11 space. He worked out the complete mathematical proof in less than 10 minutes using methods that Zephyrian science hadn't discovered yet. The silence in the laboratory lasted for nearly a full minute as every alien present tried to process what they had just witnessed. Kevin realized his mistake immediately and began stammering about how he must have remembered something from his basic physics classes back on Earth. Dr. Zolthara's crystalline eyes studied Kevin with new intensity, but the human maintained his confused expression until the moment passed. That evening, Kevin sent a coded message back to Earth reporting that his cover might be compromised. The response came 12 hours later with new orders to maintain his position and gather more information about Zephyrian research capabilities. Earth's intelligence services wanted to know exactly how far behind alien science really was compared to human achievements. Captain Michelle Rodriguez received the distress call from the luxury liner Star of Andromeda while her ship Defiance was conducting routine patrol operations near the Vega system. The passenger vessel carried diplomatic representatives from 12 different species who were returning from a trade conference when their main engines failed catastrophically. The ship was falling toward a black hole and would cross the event horizon in less than 4 hours. Every alien captain in the sector declared the rescue impossible because the gravitational forces around black holes made precision flying extremely dangerous. The physics involved were beyond what most species could handle, and attempting a rescue would likely result in losing another ship with all hands. Michelle listened to their arguments and then quietly ordered her crew to begin preparations for the most difficult rescue operation in their careers. The Defiance accelerated toward the star of Andromeda at speeds that made the alien observers gasp in shock. Michelle's navigator plotted a course that required split-second timing and mathematical precision that alien computers couldn't verify. Chief Engineer Carol Davis rerouted power through systems in ways that should have caused catastrophic overloads, but somehow kept everything running perfectly. Michelle brought her ship alongside the dying passenger liner while both vessels fell toward the black hole at incredible speed. Her crew worked with mechanical precision to transfer over 800 alien passengers and crew members to safety. They accomplished in 90 minutes what alien experts said would take at least 6 hours if it could be done at all. The rescue attracted attention throughout the galaxy because no species had ever successfully pulled a ship back from a black hole's gravity well. When alien reporters interviewed Michelle, she credited her success to basic human determination and maybe some beginner's luck with the calculations. She insisted that any human captain would have done the same thing in her position. The Vidari Syndicate decided to test humanity's weakness by targeting the family members of their diplomatic representatives. These alien criminals specialized in kidnapping and extortion, and they had successfully intimidated dozens of species over the centuries. They believed humans would be even easier to manipulate because of their obvious emotional attachments to family members. Casey Morrison was Ambassador Jake, Morrison's 18-year-old daughter, who was attending the prestigious Academy of Diplomatic Sciences on Kepler Station. She had her father's quick mind and sharp instincts, but the Vidari saw only another soft human child who could be taken without difficulty. Their intelligence suggested that human security was minimal and mostly focused on preventing accidents rather than hostile actions. 12. Vidari operatives moved against Casey during a cultural festival when security would be distracted by crowds of celebrating students. They expected to grab their target and escape before anyone realized what had happened. Instead, they encountered Sergeant Danny Wright and his team of supposedly civilian security personnel who responded with lethal efficiency. Danny had been watching the Vidari for 3 days because human intelligence networks had detected their presence on the station long before they made their move. His team of 8 included some of Earth's most dangerous special operations soldiers, disguised as maintenance workers and administrative staff. When the kidnapping attempt began, they were already in position to respond. The Vidari never understood what hit them. Their operatives found themselves facing humans who moved like predators and fought with weapons that shouldn't have been available to civilian security forces. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes and ended with 11 Vidari in custody, and 1 dead from injuries that couldn't be treated in time. Intelligence Officer Sandra Bell reviewed the incident reports from her office in the basement levels of the human embassy on Nexus Prime. The Vidari prisoners had been returned to their syndicate leadership along with polite apologies for the death of their operative. The official explanation was that station security had overreacted to what they perceived as a terrorist attack. Sandra knew the truth was very different because she coordinated intelligence gathering for all human operations in this sector of the galaxy. The Vidari who survived their encounter with Danny's team were broken men who spoke in whispers about humans who could see in perfect darkness and move without making any sound. Their reports to the syndicate leadership described security personnel who anticipated every move and responded with tactics that seemed impossible for civilian guards. The syndicate decided not to pursue further action against human targets, but Sandra noted that their decision came from fear rather than diplomatic considerations. Word was spreading through criminal networks that humans were far more dangerous than they appeared and that targeting them brought consequences no one wanted to face. Sandra's real job was analyzing the reports that came in from Tony Mitchell's cultural exchange program and the intelligence data gathered by ships like the New Horizon. Every human operative in alien space contributed to a growing database of information about galactic civilization. They were mapping trade routes and military installations while studying the psychology and decision-making patterns of every major species. The Zephyrians were proud and arrogant, which made them blind to threats they considered beneath their notice. The Mordock Collective relied on logical analysis, but their rigid thinking prevented them from adapting to unexpected situations. The Thraxi hive mind made them powerful in groups, but vulnerable to disruption of their communication networks. Sandra compiled this information into detailed reports that went directly to Earth's military leadership. Humanity was preparing for something big, and every piece of intelligence brought them closer to being ready. The other species had no idea that their new diplomatic partners were actually conducting the most comprehensive military intelligence operation in galactic history. Jake Morrison attended another council session where the alien representatives discussed humanity's growing influence in galactic affairs. Some species were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about human capabilities, and there was growing pressure for Earth to accept oversight of their activities. The Council wanted to assign observers to human colonies and require regular inspections of human vessels. Jake listened to their demands with the polite confusion that had served him well for 3 years. He agreed that transparency was important in diplomatic relations and promised to discuss their concerns with Earth's government. His tone was respectful and his manner suggested genuine consideration of their proposals. What the aliens didn't notice was the subtle change in Jake's body language when he spoke. Something in his posture and the way he looked at each council member made them unconsciously step back from him. They couldn't identify the threat they sensed, but every instinct they possessed warned them that they were suddenly in the presence of something very dangerous. Jake's smile never wavered as he promised to give their suggestions the careful attention they deserved. The first Devourer ships appeared at the edge of the galaxy like dark metal nightmares emerging from humanity's worst fears about artificial intelligence. These ancient machines had been sleeping in the void between galaxies for millions of years, and now they returned to reclaim what they considered their rightful territory. Every biological life form in the galaxy was classified as contamination that needed to be eliminated for the machines to restore perfect order to the cosmos. Admiral Chris Campbell received the deployment orders in his command center buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth. The message was simple and direct, because humanity had been preparing for this moment since their first day in galactic civilization. Everything they had done over the past 3 years was designed to position them for the war that was now beginning. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions as reports flooded in from the Outer Rim systems. The Devourers moved with mechanical precision and overwhelming firepower that reduced entire worlds to lifeless rocks within hours of their arrival. Zephyrian energy shields collapsed under weapons that channeled the power of dying stars. Mordic battle computers couldn't calculate solutions fast enough to counter enemy tactics that adapted in real time to every defensive strategy. Species after species sent desperate requests for military assistance, but no one in the galaxy had weapons capable of stopping the ancient machines. The Thraxi queens threw entire hive fleets against single Devourer vessels only to watch their ships dissolve under directed energy beams that unmade matter at the molecular level. The proud warrior clans of the Korthik fought with savage determination until their homeworld was consumed by self-replicating nanomachines that turned everything organic into raw materials for more Devourer units. Jake Morrison stood before the Council and listened to their panicked discussions with the same polite attention he had shown for 3 years. The alien representatives argued among themselves about evacuation plans and desperate last stands while their civilizations burned around them. They looked to humanity for support but expected little more than moral encouragement from the species they still considered primitive newcomers to galactic society. Jake's response changed everything in ways the aliens couldn't have imagined in their worst nightmares. He activated a communication device that connected him directly to Earth's military command and spoke words that had been planned years in advance. The facade that humanity had maintained since joining the galaxy dropped away like a mask that was no longer needed for the performance. Admiral Campbell launched the human fleet from shipyards, hidden in asteroid belts and gas giant atmospheres throughout Earth's solar system. The vessels that emerged from concealment dwarfed anything the aliens had ever seen and moved with impossible speed through hyperspace corridors that current galactic science said couldn't exist. Dreadnoughts the size of cities appeared at battle sites throughout the Outer Rim, while smaller ships moved to protect worlds that were still under threat. Captain Nick Turner commanded the Iron Will as it led humanity's main battle group against the largest concentration of Devourer forces in the galaxy. His ship carried weapons that turned enemy vessels into expanding clouds of superheated plasma and defensive systems that made Devourer attacks as harmless as gentle rain. The bridge crew worked with casual efficiency while destroying machines that had terrorized the galaxy for weeks. Dr. Rachel Davis coordinated the science teams that cracked Devourer encryption protocols in less than 12 hours. Her people analyzed machine communications and identified command structures that had remained hidden for millions of years. They discovered how the Devourers reproduced and spread throughout the galaxy and developed countermeasures that turned the machine's own adaptive systems against them. Rachel's background was in xenorchaeology and computer science, but her real expertise was in breaking codes that weren't supposed to be breakable. She had spent years studying every form of alien communication and developing theoretical frameworks for understanding machine intelligence. When the Devourers arrived, her preparation made the impossible seem routine. The human assault on machine positions followed patterns that no alien military theorist had ever conceived. General Pat Johnson led ground forces that fought like the apex predators they had evolved to become while using tactics that treated the Devourer's logical responses as predictable weaknesses rather than strengths. Human soldiers moved through Devourer-controlled territory like ghosts and struck at targets with timing that seemed impossible to achieve. Pat had been studying machine psychology through captured Devourer units for longer than anyone realized. Human intelligence services had been tracking machine activity in the Outer Rim for months before the main invasion began. When the war started, humanity already understood their enemies better than the Devourers understood themselves. The battle for the Centauri cluster became the turning point that showed the galaxy what humans were really capable of accomplishing when they stopped pretending to be harmless primitives. 300 Devourer ships moved against the cluster's 13 inhabited worlds, with enough firepower to sterilize entire solar systems. Alien military experts calculated that defeating this force would require the combined fleets of at least 20 major species working in perfect coordination. Nick Turner's battle group consisted of 37 human vessels, and they destroyed the entire Devourer force in less than 4 hours of combat. The engagement was recorded by alien observers who watched in stunned silence as human weapons reduced ancient machines to atomic particles while human ships maneuvered through space with precision that defied every law of physics the galaxy thought it understood. The Devourers attempted to adapt their tactics to counter human strategies, but discovered that their enemies had already anticipated every possible response. Human battle computers didn't just calculate optimal solutions to current problems, but predicted how machine intelligence would evolve and prepared countermeasures for threats that didn't exist yet. The ancient machines found themselves fighting opponents who were always 3 steps ahead of their adaptive processes. Worlds throughout the galaxy watched human forces sweep through Devourer-occupied systems like an unstoppable tide of destruction. The machines that had seemed invincible against every other species in known space fell before human attacks with shocking ease. Ancient strongholds that had stood for millions of years were reduced to debris fields in minutes. The final battle occurred at the galactic core, where the Devourer command network had established its primary control center. The machines gathered their remaining forces for a desperate last stand while human fleets converged from every direction. What should have been an epic confrontation lasting months or years ended in 6 hours with the complete annihilation of machine resistance. Jake Morrison addressed the Galactic Council from the same podium where he had played the role of confused diplomat for 3 years. The alien representative sat in shocked silence as he explained that humanity's performance during the crisis had been the result of careful preparation rather than lucky improvisation. Every stumble and every confused question had been part of a deception designed to hide humanity's true capabilities until the moment came to reveal them. The ambassador's words were calm and reasonable, but every alien in the chamber could sense the predator that had been hiding behind the diplomatic mask. Jake explained that humanity had tried to fit into galactic civilization by following alien rules and customs, but that approach was no longer necessary. The Devourer War had demonstrated that human methods were more effective than anything the galaxy had developed over millions of years of peaceful cooperation. Jake's final statement echoed through every communication network in known space as alien leaders tried to understand what had just happened to their carefully ordered universe. The species that had seemed like bumbling newcomers 3 years ago had just proven themselves capable of accomplishing what the entire galaxy working together couldn't achieve. Humanity was no longer asking for acceptance into galactic society, because they had just demonstrated that galactic society needed humanity more than humanity needed them. The message was simple and delivered with the same polite tone Jake had used throughout his diplomatic career, but every word carried implications that made alien leaders realize their universe had changed forever. The time for playing by alien rules was over, and now everyone would learn to live by human standards instead. Colonel Terry Hayes walked through the corridors of what had been the Devourer Command Center at the Galactic Core and marveled at how quickly his engineering teams had converted the ancient machine's stronghold into a human military base. The facility now served as the headquarters for Operation Galaxy Watch, which was humanity's polite name for their complete takeover of galactic civilization. Terry commanded over 50,000 troops stationed throughout former Devourer territory, and everyone understood that peacekeeping was just another word for occupation. The transformation had taken less than 3 months because humans didn't waste time with lengthy transition periods or diplomatic negotiations. When the Devourer War ended, humanity immediately moved to secure every strategic location in the galaxy. They established bases on worlds that controlled major trade routes and positioned fleets at hyperspace junction points that could cut off entire sectors from the rest of galactic civilization. The aliens watched this happen with growing alarm, but discovered they had no power to stop it. Director Gary Foster addressed the emergency session of the Galactic Council from his new position as head of Human Administrative Services. The title sounded bureaucratic and harmless, but Gary controlled every aspect of galactic infrastructure that mattered. Human technicians had been quietly upgrading alien systems for 3 years, and now every communication network relied on human-designed components that could be shut down remotely if necessary. Gary explained to the assembled alien representatives that humanity appreciated their contributions to galactic civilization, but that recent events had demonstrated the need for more efficient leadership. The Devourer War proved that traditional alien approaches to crisis management were inadequate for dealing with serious threats. Humanity would therefore be taking responsibility for galactic security and other essential services to ensure that similar disasters never occurred again. The council members listened in stunned silence as Gary outlined the new administrative structure that would govern their lives. Humans would oversee military operations throughout the galaxy, while alien governments maintained authority over local affairs that didn't affect interstellar security. Trade regulations would be simplified under human supervision, and scientific research would be coordinated through human institutions to maximize efficiency and prevent duplication of effort. Gary's presentation included detailed charts showing how human management would improve every aspect of galactic civilization. His tone was professional, and his manner suggested genuine concern for alien welfare, but everyone in the chamber understood that they were being told how their new masters intended to run things. The pretense of consultation was maintained, but the reality of human dominance was undeniable. Admiral Kelly Brooks commanded the space forces that dealt with the Zephyrian resistance movement, which had formed immediately after humanity revealed their true capabilities. The proud blue-skinned aliens couldn't accept that primitive humans from an unknown backwater world had become their superiors overnight. They gathered their remaining fleet assets and prepared for a war of liberation that would restore the natural order of galactic civilization. Kelly's intelligence networks had been tracking Zephyrian military preparations for weeks before the rebels made their move. Human agents embedded throughout Zephyrian society provided detailed reports on ship movements and strategic planning sessions. When the Resistance finally launched their offensive, they discovered that human forces were already waiting for them at every target location. The Battle of the Crystalline Nebula lasted 18 minutes and ended with the complete destruction of the Zephyrian rebel fleet. Kelly's ships demonstrated the same overwhelming superiority they had shown against the Devourers while using weapons specifically designed to counter Zephyrian energy shields and crystalline armor plating. The rebels' most advanced battle cruisers were reduced to glittering dust by human weapons that turned their defensive systems into weaknesses. Kelly made sure to rescue every Zephyrian survivor and provided excellent medical care for the wounded. The prisoners were treated with courtesy and respect while being transported to rehabilitation facilities where they would learn to accept the new galactic reality. Human propaganda emphasized that the Resistance had been misguided rather than evil, and that everyone would benefit from cooperation with humanity's benevolent leadership. Ambassador Maria Santos met with representatives from the Mordak Collective in a conference room aboard her flagship where the logical aliens attempted to negotiate a settlement that would preserve their independence. The Mordak believed their rational approach to problem-solving would appeal to human intelligence and allow them to maintain some autonomy within the new galactic order. Maria listened politely to their carefully constructed arguments and detailed proposals for power-sharing arrangements. The Mordak had spent weeks analyzing human behavior patterns and developing logical frameworks for cooperation between their species. Their presentation included statistical analysis showing how Mordic administrative efficiency could complement human military superiority to everyone's advantage. Maria's response was delivered with the same diplomatic courtesy that Jake Morrison had perfected during his years of deception. She thanked the Mordic for their thoughtful proposals and acknowledged their reputation for logical thinking. However, she explained that humanity wasn't interested in sharing power, because they had already demonstrated their ability to handle galactic administration without assistance from other species. The Mordic delegates tried to argue that cooperation would produce better results than human dominance, but Maria simply smiled and pointed out that results were what mattered rather than theoretical frameworks. Humanity had ended the Devourer threat in weeks, while the combined forces of galactic civilization had been helpless against the machines. That practical demonstration carried more weight than any logical argument the Mordic could construct. Captain Joey Phillips commanded the exploration vessel Wanderer, as it completed humanity's systematic mapping of every star system in the galaxy. His mission was officially described as scientific research, but everyone understood that he was actually conducting reconnaissance for potential military operations. The ship's advanced sensors could detect hidden bases and identify resource deposits while the crew gathered intelligence on any species that might consider resisting human authority. Joey's work revealed that several alien civilizations had attempted to flee to the galactic rim where they hoped to establish independent colonies beyond human reach. These refugees discovered that human exploration ships had already mapped their destination systems and established monitoring stations throughout the region. There was literally nowhere in the galaxy where humans didn't have eyes and ears watching. For potential threats, the refugee fleets were intercepted by human patrol vessels and offered a choice between returning to their home worlds under human protection or accepting resettlement on designated colony planets where their activities could be properly supervised. Most chose resettlement because the alternative was seeing their ships disabled and their people transported anyway. Human efficiency made resistance seem pointless rather than heroic. Dr. Steve Martin led the psychological warfare teams that dealt with the Thraxi Queens who had attempted to form a unified resistance movement against human dominance. The insect-like aliens possessed hive mind intelligence that made them extremely dangerous when working together, but also created vulnerabilities that human specialists could exploit with surgical precision. Steve's people had spent years studying Thraxi communication methods and social structures while posing as harmless researchers interested in collective consciousness. When the Resistance formed, his teams were already positioned throughout Thraxi space with detailed knowledge of how their hive minds operated. The psychological attacks that followed turned the aliens' greatest strength into a crippling weakness that shattered their unity within days. Human operators introduced carefully crafted information into Thraxi communication networks that created confusion and mistrust between different hive clusters. The aliens found themselves unable to coordinate their activities as conflicting signals disrupted their collective decision-making processes. Queens who had ruled their populations for centuries suddenly couldn't communicate with their own subjects. The collapse of Thraxi resistance was so complete that many aliens throughout the galaxy began to suspect that humans possess supernatural abilities rather than advanced technology. The speed and efficiency of human operations seemed impossible to achieve through conventional means. Species that had considered rebelling against human authority reconsidered their plans when they realized that opposition was not just futile but potentially suicidal. Jake Morrison announced the formation of the human hegemony from his office in what had been the Galactic Council building but was now the Central Administration Center for Human-Controlled Space. The transition was presented as a natural evolution of galactic government rather than a conquest because humanity preferred cooperation to coercion whenever possible. The new system maintained the appearance of alien participation in government, while ensuring that humans controlled every decision that actually mattered. Captain Annie Clark piloted her patrol ship Guardian through the Sigma sector where 3 different alien species had once maintained independent colonies before human forces arrived to restore order. The region had been plagued by constant border disputes and trade wars for over 2 centuries until human administrators imposed peace through simple efficiency. Now Annie's monthly patrol was more of a social visit than a security operation because her mere presence was enough to prevent conflicts before they could develop. Annie had been born 10 years after humanity revealed their true nature to the galaxy, and she belonged to the first generation of humans who grew up knowing they were the dominant species in known space. Her casual confidence and unconscious assumptions about human superiority made older aliens uncomfortable because she represented the future of galactic civilization. Young humans like Annie didn't need to pretend to be harmless because the galaxy had already learned to respect their power. The 3 species in Annie's patrol sector lived together peacefully now, but their children learned very different versions of history than their parents had experienced. Zephyrian schools taught courses about the Great Deception where an entire species had fooled the galaxy for years through careful planning and superior intelligence. Mordic educators analyzed human tactical doctrine as the perfect example of adaptive strategy that overcame logical limitations. Thraxi larvae studied human psychology to understand how individual intelligence could surpass collective consciousness under certain conditions. Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor ran the expanded academy on Nexus Prime where alien officers trained alongside humans for careers in the new galactic military structure. The contrast between human and alien cadets was stark enough that visiting dignitaries often assumed they were watching different species take completely different courses. Human students intuitively grasped tactical concepts that alien cadets struggled to understand even after months of intensive instruction. Ben's job was officially described as cross-species military education, but everyone understood that he was actually training aliens to follow human orders effectively. The academy produced officers who could command alien units under human supervision, while ensuring that no species developed independent military capabilities that might threaten galactic stability. Graduation ceremonies celebrated diversity and cooperation while reinforcing the reality of human dominance through every aspect of the curriculum. Dr. Helen Woods had become the galaxy's leading expert on evolutionary pressure dynamics, and her research explained why Earth produced beings capable of galactic dominance. Her papers were required reading at every major university, but most alien scholars admitted they could barely comprehend the implications of her work. Helen's theories suggested that any species surviving Earth's hostile environment would naturally become apex predators on a galactic scale. Helen's latest book included detailed analysis of how human evolution differed from the development patterns of every other known species. Most aliens had evolved on worlds with stable climates and predictable environments where cooperation was more valuable than competition. Earth's constant dangers created evolutionary pressure that favored intelligence and adaptability while eliminating any genetic lines that couldn't handle extreme stress. The implications of Helen's research terrified many alien intellectuals, because her work suggested that humanity's rise to galactic dominance had been inevitable rather than accidental. If her theories were correct, then any contact with Earthborn species would eventually result in human control of galactic civilization. The gentle diplomatic newcomers who joined the galaxy 10 years ago had always been destined to become everyone's rulers. Young aliens throughout human-controlled space grew up hearing stories about the legendary figures who had orchestrated humanity's rise to power. Jake Morrison was remembered as the master diplomat who had deceived an entire galaxy while gathering the intelligence necessary for human victory. Captain Lisa Hayes became the symbol of human exploration and the patient mapping of alien weaknesses. Admiral Chris Campbell was celebrated as the military genius who had planned humanity's response to the Devourer crisis years before the machines returned. These stories took on mythic proportions as they spread through alien cultures where humans were portrayed as beings capable of planning decades in advance, while maintaining perfect deception throughout years of patient preparation. The truth was impressive enough, but the legends made humans seem almost supernatural in their abilities. Parents told their children about the moment Deathworlders stopped playing nice and every species learned what apex predators could accomplish when they decided to take control. The Devourer incursions that still occurred sporadically throughout the galaxy were handled by local human forces with casual efficiency that made the ancient machines seem like minor nuisances rather than existential threats. What had once been capable of destroying galactic civilization was now merely a training exercise for new human military units, who used the occasional machine raids to practice their tactical skills against real opponents. Commander Rick Davis laid one such training operation when 50 Devourer ships emerged from dark space near the agricultural world of Haven Prime. The machines expected to find the same helpless biological targets they had encountered during their original invasion, but instead faced human defenders, who treated their arrival as a welcome opportunity for combat practice. Rick's squadron destroyed the entire Devourer force in less than 30 minutes while his cadets took detailed notes on optimal firing solutions and formation tactics. The alien farmers on Haven Prime watched the battle from their fields, and many of them had been present during the original Devourer War 10 years earlier. They remembered the terror and helplessness they had felt when facing the ancient machines, but now they barely looked up from their work as human ships eliminated the threat with routine efficiency. The children playing in the farmyards had never known a galaxy where humans weren't the ultimate protectors of biological life. Professor Alan Foster taught galactic history at the University of New Terra, where students from dozens of species learned about the events that had shaped their current reality. His most popular course covered the 3-year period when humanity had maintained their diplomatic facade while secretly preparing for galactic dominance. Students analyzed intercepted communications and intelligence reports that revealed the scope of human deception while marveling at the patience and planning required to fool an entire galaxy. Alan's lectures included audio recordings of Jake Morrison's early diplomatic speeches where careful analysis could detect subtle hints about humanity's true capabilities. Students learned to recognize the moments when the human ambassador had allowed glimpses of his predatory nature to show through his polite exterior. The fact that no alien had noticed these warning signs at the time demonstrated how completely humans had understood and manipulated galactic psychology. Some alien historians argued that humanity's rise had been inevitable, because any species capable of surviving Earth would naturally become galactic dominators. Others believed it was humanity's unique combination of intelligence and aggression That made the difference between successful adaptation and galactic conquest. The debates continued in academic circles, but everyone agreed that the moment humans stopped pretending to be harmless had changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. Dr. Sarah Lewis conducted interviews with alien survivors of the transition period for her research into the psychological impact of sudden species dominance reversal. Her subjects included former Galactic Council members who had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers only to discover they had been sharing chambers with the most dangerous beings in known space. Many of these aliens still suffered from what human psychologists classified as apex predator recognition syndrome. Sarah's work revealed that most aliens had experienced the transition as a fundamental shift in their understanding of reality rather than simply a change in political leadership. The species they had considered inferior had proven superior in every meaningful way while maintaining perfect deception throughout years of close contact. Many aliens reported feeling as if they had discovered that harmless pets were actually apex predators who had been studying them for weaknesses. The children of both human and alien families played together in parks throughout human-controlled space while their parents worked in integrated communities that functioned more smoothly than anyone had expected. Young humans displayed the casual confidence of a dominant species, while alien children learned to accept human authority as natural and beneficial. The integration was so complete that many observers predicted the emergence of a truly unified galactic culture within another generation. Captain Laver Johnson commanded the exploration vessel Destiny as it continued humanity's systematic survey of the galactic rim, where new species were occasionally discovered. Her mission represented the expansion of human influence into previously unknown regions while maintaining the appearance of peaceful scientific research. Laura's crew included alien specialists who helped establish first contact protocols that immediately integrated new species into the human-dominated galactic order.